In the UK, a 17-year-old can ride to college for £400 without a bike licence at all, and can you blame them for taking it up? E-bikes are now rising exponentially in popularity, and we can't deny that. They're absolutely everywhere. We're seeing them on cycle paths, cutting through traffic, outside colleges and offices, and outside train stations, and they're becoming more common than we may realise. The modern ones are quick. Some of them are very, very quick. And the people riding them, a lot of them are exactly the age that you or I might have been not so long ago when we were considering saving up to do our CBT and buy that 50cc bike or that 125 when we were younger. So here's the question that I want to explore today. Is that a problem for motorcycling? And the simple answer is yes. Obviously, I can already see you all going to the comments going, of course it's a problem. But the more I dug into this topic, the less straightforward the answer became for various reasons, such as legality and safety, and various different versions of the bikes that you can buy. It eventually led me to ask a slightly different question altogether. So stick with me as we dive into this one and find out, are e-bikes having a negative impact on the motorcycle industry? First things first, let me explain what my understanding is for e-bikes here in the UK and what they actually are, because I personally think they're a genuinely brilliant mode of transport for many of us. Thinking about it from a 17-year-old's point of view, you need to get to college in the morning, you've got no car, the bus is unreliable, and you want a bit of independence. Well, the answer is simple now, isn't it? It's a pedal-assisted e-bike. You can pick one up of these for maybe £300-400. You don't need a driving licence, you don't need insurance, you don't need an MOT, you don't need tax. You just buy it, and for a teenager commuting somewhere or wanting to go see his mates, well, there you go, you've got a great mode of transport from A to B, and it's a compelling offer. This isn't a video about e-bikes being the enemy, because they're not. They're a solution for many people, and they're a really genius solution for many people. But they are presenting a very real issue when it comes to getting the next generation of riders onto motorcycles. Now, I had a proper dig into the data, as I usually do, and a couple of numbers stood out that I thought when we put them together, they paint a very clear picture. So I knew this was the case, but I didn't quite realise it was as bad as this. In 2024, around 146,000 e-bikes were sold in the UK, and that sounds like a lot because it is. But for additional context, back in 2015, e-bikes made up less than 1% of all UK pedal bike sales in the UK. And by 2024, that figure is now over 11%, and it's expected to keep growing because I think last year's numbers looked about 165,000 bikes sold. And that's a tenfold increase in market share in under 10 years. Such growth represents a genuine shift in how people are choosing to get around on bicycles. Now, when you put that next to this next set of numbers, it's quite worrying. In 2008, over 25,000 new 50cc mopeds were registered in the UK in one single year. And I'm referring to those that will twist and go, step through kind of scooters and stuff. I'm not looking at 125s. It was literally just twist and go 50cc's. By 2023, that number was just over 5,500. That is an 80% collapse. Side by side, those two stats paint a pretty bleak picture for motorcycling in the UK. And the British Motorcycling Federation put it, well, quite plainly, and I am paraphrasing when I say this, but they went on to say that from the point of view of the average teenager faced with choosing between buying an e-bike and riding it straight out of the shop, or going out and getting themselves a CBT, getting insurance, buying a registered moped, going and following all the rules and regulations with that, they're going to pick the path of least resistance, aren't they? And who can argue with that? So my question quickly changed from, is it bad for the motorcycle industry, to, well, what are we going to do about it next? Now, before I go and answer that new question, I want to clear something up surrounding the legalities of e-bikes, because there's a little bit of confusion, or maybe actually quite a lot of confusion around this topic. Not all e-bikes are legal in the same way that most people think they are. In the UK, there is a specific legal category called an EAPC, or an electronically assisted pedal cycle. And if your bike qualifies for that, then brilliant. You don't need a license, insurance, registration, or tax, and you're treated exactly the same as every regular cyclist. But to qualify, the bike must meet 3 rules. The motor cannot be more than 250 watts. The electronically assisted part of it has to cut out at 15.5 miles per hour, and the pedals have to be turning for the motor to engage, so it can't use a throttle or a twisting or a button. That covers most of the e-bikes that we see being sold by decent, reputable bike shops. But a lot of what gets called an e-bike online, and what we might be seeing ridden on UK roads and cycle paths every single day, doesn't necessarily meet those rules. There's high-powered bikes with throttle controls, much the same as a motorcycle, twist and go throttle. The likes of Sur-Ron, for example, in their standard form. Or regular bikes that have been kitted out and fitted and modified to take an e-bike adapter. These are classed as motor vehicles under UK law. They need registration, insurance, and a license. And enforcement coming down on people riding these bikes is increasing. Police seizures of illegal modified bikes were up about 83% in 2024 alone. Now, I'm not saying any of this to put you guys off from going out and getting one. I'm saying it because if you're thinking about getting into an e-bike, or you know someone who is, it's worth knowing the facts around the differences before you go and buy one. And for those of you who are, well, on the fence between choosing an e-bike or starting your journey on power with two wheels, what I would say to you is motorcycles and power with two wheels is far better. And there's a handy video at the pop-out banner at the top, which you can go and check out, where I dive into a bit of detail regarding the proposed changes to the current motorcycle licence systems here in the UK. And look, since we're on the topic of legality and being legal, it feels like a fitting time to also introduce you guys to this week's video sponsor, who is, of course, LITELOK, as these guys are going to be key in securing both your e-bikes and your motorcycles. I personally use this particular lock, a LITELOK X1, and it keeps my bike nice and safe and secure and helps me, well, feel a bit safer that my bike's not going to be taken. I'll save you the full breakdown because there is a dedicated video, again, at the pop-up banner at the top of this video, for you to go and find out exactly what makes this lock stand out. But the abridged version is that most locks will work as a deterrent, but this is actually a proper stopper. It will prevent a theft happening, even if they decide to attack your bike and go for it. It uses a barium core, which is angle grinder resistant and turns the power of the cutting disc back onto the cutting disc itself, destroying it in the process and slowing the thieves down. And before anyone says, well, they're just going to use a diamond-coated cutting disc because they're more powerful, well, yes, they probably could go at it with that. It still does a very good job of slowing them down. And thanks to the design of this lock using an anti-twist shackle, they'd have to make 2 clean cuts all the way through, wasting time these criminals simply do not have. Now, if you're interested in finding out more about them, like I say, you can click the pop-up banner at the top of the screen, go to the affiliate link below, have a look at their website, and if you buy one from those guys, you'll be supporting my channel and helping me keep making these free-to-view videos. And ultimately, if you do buy through the affiliate link, you will not be paying a single penny more than if you were to buy direct. Now that's all out of the way, here's where I want to get to that new question. Does riding an e-bike lead someone towards motorcycling, or does it in fact replace it? Because there used to be a very fairly natural progression into biking. Kids got interested in two wheels, they started on a bicycle and maybe passed their CBT a bit later in life. They bought themselves a 50cc moped at 16, progressed onto a 2-stroke 125 and experienced a little bit of power for the first time, and eventually worked their way up to a full licence to become a motorcyclist for life. And that pipeline existed for absolutely decades, and it worked. But e-bikes are coming in and disrupting that. And are they now actually becoming the new first step? Because think about it. If a 16-year-old gets an e-bike and rides it for a year or two, falls in love with two wheels, builds up the confidence to go tear-arsing around on it, is that actually bad for motorcycling in the long run? Or is it just a new version of that same journey? I genuinely don't know the answer. And I think that's what makes this such an interesting topic, because if e-bikes are a gateway, and if the kids on the pedal-assisted at 16 years old become the new 125 riders at 17 and A2 licence holders at 18, then the industry doesn't have a crisis. It has an opportunity that it's just not capitalised on yet. But if e-bikes are, by definition, the destination and the freedom, and the cost is simpler, and it satisfies that itch and removes the motivation to go any further, then we've got a very different conversation on our hands. And this is where I think it's worth asking, what could the motorcycle industry actually do here? Because right now, I'd argue the gap between an e-bike and a legal 125 feels enormous to a young rider. This cavernous gap that e-bikes are filling, and they're filling it brilliantly because they're affordable and there's very little competition coming out from the motorcycle manufacturers to encourage riders to have that brand loyalty. But here's the thing that I want to leave you all with. I'm very aware that motorcycling has always evolved. The kids on scooters in the 60s became the cafe racer crowd today. The dirt bikers of the 80s became the adventure tourers of the 2000s. The routes into motorcycling have always been changing and always been developing. And that destination feeling, that sense of freedom on two wheels, that's never really gone away. And maybe, just maybe, the e-bike generation is the next chapter of that very same story. Not a threat to motorcycling as such, just a new starting point. The industry's job, and honestly, the job of channels just like this one, and you and I as fans of motorcycling, is to make sure that the door to motorcycling stays open. To make motorcycling feel achievable and exciting to someone who's never thought about it before. to be the reason that an 18-year-old on an e-bike thinks, yeah, actually, what's next after this bike? That, for me personally, is worth working towards. So I want to hear from you guys. Did you come into motorcycling through an unusual route? Was it a moped or a dirt bike, off-roading? Something completely different. And if you're watching this and you're currently on an e-bike, genuinely curious about what it actually takes to get onto a motorcycle and get out there and ride a power two wheels, then drop a comment below. Let's all have a bit of a conversation about it. I read every single one and try to reply to every comment because I really do enjoy engaging with you guys. And if you've enjoyed this video, then please do not forget to go and check out last week's video. Put it on the screen up here, where I go and take a look at the rise of Chinese brand motorcycles here in the UK. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can do it by clicking on my face in the little round circle just down here. So if you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, go and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. And hopefully I get to see you guys next week in my next video. Please ride safe, and I'll see you guys around.